Today is Tuesday, so happy Tuesday. It's May 19th and day 62 of Missing My Kiddos. Good gravity. We're still reading Runaway Ralph by Beverly Cleary, and we're on chapter 6, and it's called A Thief in the Craft Shop. At first, the sign over Ralph's cage was the cause of argument. But Aunt Jill, how come Garth is the one who gets to feed the mouse? The campers asked. I want to feed the mouse too. Yeah, why can't I feed the mouse? It isn't fair. Nobody else has a mouse. Aunt Jill always gave the same answer. Garth gets to feed the mouse because the mouse is his. He caught it in a butterfly net. This policy inspired some of the campers to go mouse hunting, big game hunting they called it, with butterfly nets. But when no mice were caught, enthusiasm waned and the campers generally lost interest. Catso followed someone into the craft shop whenever he could. And whenever he succeeded, Aunt Jill said, someone had better get that cat out. Usually Lana was the one who picked up Catso and held him with his face over her shoulder as if he were a baby. Poor baby, she crooned, patting Catso on the back as if she were burping an infant. Ralph found the smug look on Catso's face most annoying, and here he is. Garth was happy, but Ralph was not. The boy showed no signs of running away, and now that he abided by the rules, the two were never alone. The bars of Ralph's cage enclosed a very small area, and no matter how fast he ran on his wheel, he remained He remained in the same place. He began to sit motionless for long periods of time while he thought more and more about the freedom he had enjoyed back at the Mountain View Inn. He missed those long corridors and his exciting expeditions in search of food. What he had once called crumb scrounging now seemed like a test of courage. He even came to admit that he missed his little brothers and sisters and cousins. They were nuisances, but they were livelier than a grumpy hamster. Perhaps he wouldn't mind giving some of the little mice, boy mice of course, short rides on the motorcycle after all. My kids are playing basketball, in case you hear my walls crashing in. Most of all, Ralph missed that motorcycle. He clutched the wires of his cage and, recalling the nights he had sped through the corridors of the old hotel while guests snored behind closed doors, he tried to pretend they were the grips on his handlebars. But it was no use. The wires remained what they were, the bars of a small prison. Higher, but not as long as an economy-sized Kleenex box. So, ew, that's a small cage. Ralph grew listless. So great was his homesickness that choice tidbits from the dining hall tempted him less and less. He sometimes skipped meals, preferring instead to curl up in a corner under some shredded paper where he dozed, dreaming of dark nights, smooth floors, and speed. Cheer up, said Chum. You'll get used to being in a cage. Ralph did not even answer. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts. Garth, on the other hand, no longer wanted to be alone. He came into the craft shop to tend Ralph while other campers were present, and soon he became interested in the tools in the shop, and he finally went to work with some other boys building wooden boats to float in the irrigation ditch. One long morning, Ralph passed the time by watching a girl named Karen. Karen was one of the older campers, a girl 12 or 13 years old, with long blonde hair, which that morning was wet. All the other girls washed their hair several times a week. Karen was making an old plastic bleach bottle into a piggy bank. She turned it on its side so the handle was on top, glued corks in place for the legs, cut a slit under the handle, and painted eyes above the spout, which was now the piggy bank's snout. Ralph noticed that Karen paused from time to time to scratch her left arm. Finally, Karen set her paintbrush across the top of the paint jar and removed her watch, which she laid on the shelf beside Ralph's cage. He could hear it ticking. She scratched the spot where the watch had been, returned to her painting, and then stopped to scratch again. Karen, let me see your arm, said Aunt Jill, who was showing a boy how to lace together a wallet. Sorry. Oh, it looks to me as if you have poison oak. Well, you'd better go see the nurse about it and be careful not to scratch it. But Aunt Jill, it feels good to scratch, said Karen, tossing back her hair. Yes, I know, but scratching only spreads the poison oak and makes it worse, said Aunt Jill. Now run along and see the nurse. I'll wash out your paintbrush for you. It's almost time for the dinner bell. When the bell rang for the noon meal and the craft shop was empty, Ralph felt his fur rise along his spine. Sure enough, just as he expected, there was the curious paw of Catso exploring the hole in the screen door. Then the pink nose appeared. Catso must have pushed really hard because the rusty screen gave away and the rest of his whole head appeared. Oh my goodness, Catso did not stop there. He pushed and wiggled until he got one shoulder and then the other through the hole. Then came Catso's front feet, followed by the rest of the beast. Catso was in the craft shop. Where was Sam? Ralph scuttled to the far corner of his cage where he turned his back to the world and tried to make himself invisible. He heard Catso land lightly on the work table beneath his cage, and he knew this time there was no one to snatch that cat and shove him out the door. Ralph waited. But when nothing happened, he summoned the courage to peek over his shoulder. Catso was calmly washing himself and appeared not to even notice. Ralph was not fooled for an instant. He knew Catso was aware of every move he made. Drat that cat, he thought bitterly, as his heart beat faster than the tick of the watch on the shelf beside his cage. Catso licked his right paw over and over with great care and began to wash his right ear. Oh yeah, that's right, thought Ralph. Just take your time. He was worn out from bracing himself for the pounce that did not come. A real war of nerves, he thought, just what that cat wants. He's got me where he wants me, and he knows it. Catso groomed his left paw, currying his fur neatly in the direction of his toes. He used his teeth to pull bits of dried mud from between his paw pads, and then began to scrub his left ear. Well, come on, thought Ralph, get it over with. You don't have to be so neat. He would just as soon be knocked off the shelf by a cat with dirty ears as a cat with clean ears. Catso finished washing, looked at Ralph, and then glanced away. Oh yeah, Ralph was familiar with that maneuver. Here it comes, he thought. But this time, Ralph was mistaken. Catso's attention had been caught by the leather strap of the wristwatch hanging over the edge of the shelf. He tapped it with a curious paw, and he watched it swing back and forth. Ralph's blood chilled as the claws appeared from the exploring paw that batted the strap once more. Then the claws hooked the watch strap and dragged the watch down to the work table. Why, that dumb cat actually thinks the watch band is a tail, thought Ralph in astonishment. Catso sat very still, listening to the watch tick. He batted it experimentally with his paw, but the watch lay as still as any terrified mouse would. While Ralph watched in fascination, Catso picked up the watch in his mouth and, with the strap hanging down like a tail, leaped from the table to the floor where he dropped the watch, batted it around, picked it up again, and slipped out through the hole in the screen door. Ralph ventured out of his corner, and with shaking paws, he clung to the wires of his cage to see what happened next. Catso played with the watch a while on the bamboo leaves, but when the cook with a pan of scraps came in hand, when the cook with a pan of scraps in hand opened the kitchen door, the greedy animal dropped the watch and ran off to be fed. The watch slid onto a smooth bamboo husk until it came to rest, hidden from sight, under some leaves. Oh, talk about close calls, said Chum. Dumb cat, said Ralph in a squeak of a voice. Ralph was dazed by the whole experience, but he noticed Garf leave the dining hall when the campers began to sing one of their favorite songs. Up in the air, Junior Birdman, up in the air and upside down. Up in the air, Junior Birdman, keep your noses off the ground. Come into the craft shop, Ralph pleaded silently. But true to his promise to Aunt Jill, the boy did not enter the craft shop, but sat alone with his thoughts twirling idly in a tire suspended from one of the trees, and he's singing to his own private tune. So it's still the same words the kids are singing, but it's kind of off key. When you hear the doorbell ringing and you see the badge of tin, you'll know the Junior Birdmen have turned their box tops in. I don't know that song at all. Before long, Karen, her left arm covered with white lotion, came running into the craft shop with two of her friends. My watch, she cried, sending Ralph scuttling into a corner. It's gone. Somebody must have taken it, said one of her friends, an older girl who was wearing polished English riding boots. I'll bet it was that Garf Jernigan, said the second friend. I'll bet it was too, said the girl in English riding boots. I saw him leave the dining hall early. Now, did he take it? No, and this is how rumors start because people think they're just assuming that he did it because he left early, but he didn't take it. You guys remember who? She brushed dust from the toe of her boot. Girls who owned English riding boots were proud of them and they shined them often. Karen tried to be fair. We don't know it was Garf, and we didn't see him come in here. The girls crowded out through the screen door to meet Aunt Jill, who had paused on her way to the shop to talk to somebody. Aunt Jill, they cried. Karen's watch is gone. Aunt Jill, we have a mystery, cried Lana, who had tagged after the older girls in her dirty cowboy boots. She liked the dirt on her boots, which showed she was not a newcomer to camp. Everyone wanted to hear about the missing watch. Campers crowded around Aunt Jill and the three girls. Through the open window, Ralph heard little pieces of the conversation. Aunt Jill, I'm sure I left it on the shelf beside the mouse cage. I'm positive. And then someone else said, yeah, we looked every place. And then someone else said, and I saw Garf, and it was my birthday present. Search the lodges. So it was just little pieces of conversation. He sneaks out of the dining hall. He hasn't even been excused from the table. Now, girls. This was Aunt Jill. Well, I don't care. He acts funny. That cat really has fixed things now, thought Ralph, as the campers gathered on the benches and at the old school desks under the walnut trees. One of the counselors led the singing, and then Aunt Jill stepped up on the platform. Campers, I have some unhappy news today, she began. Karen's watch is missing from the craft shop where she is sure she laid it on a shelf. It was not an expensive watch, but it was a birthday present to Karen, and she would like very much to have it back. Here, Karen nodded her head vigorously, and Aunt Jill went on. We are not going to search the lodges, as someone suggested. We are going to let the person who took the watch return it, because it is the right thing to do. Well, a lot Katso cares about doing the right thing, thought Ralph. He heard Garf, who was sitting on the last bench, say angrily to the boy in front of him, What are you looking at me for? Aunt Jill continued, No one needs to know who took the watch. It can be returned to the shelf in the craft shop when no one is looking, or to my desk in the office. We are not interested in who took the watch. We just want it returned to Karen, because returning it is the right thing to do. After Aunt Jill's speech, the campers began to sing, You Are My Sunshine. Garf slipped away from the rest of the campers, and, as Aunt Jill had suggested, he sat down by himself behind the clump of bamboo. This afternoon was the first time Ralph had seen him sit there. You make me happy, sang the campers. Well, they haven't made Garf happy, thought Ralph, wishing that Garf were sitting on the other side of the bamboo near the craft shop door, where he might find the watch by accident. That boy's really in trouble, said Chum. Ralph turned in surprise. I thought you were asleep under your cedar shavings, he remarked. That's what I make them think, said Chum. I didn't miss a thing. Well, what's your opinion of the case? Asked Ralph, who knew the right words to use in such a situation from watching so many television programs in the lobby of the Mountain View Inn. I think that boy is in a tight spot, said Chum. Everybody knows he used to come into the craft shop when no one was here. And they know he's still the first person to leave the dining hall, so naturally, everyone thinks he took the watch. He obviously can't return the watch because he doesn't know where it is. So, of course, everyone will think he's keeping it. And here's Garf sitting underneath the bamboo. I thought it would have more bamboo than that. That's the way I figured it, agreed Ralph. And I can tell you one thing, continued Chum. He's not going to come near the craft shop until that watch is found. What about me? Squeaked Ralph in dismay, thinking of the sign above his cage. Nobody else feeds me. I'll starve. I'll try to toss you an alfalfa pellet once in a while, said Chum generously. My aim isn't very good, but I should be able to get one into your cage now and then. Enough to keep you going. Going where? Wondered Ralph. No place. What was to become of him when the summer ended and all the campers went home? Would Garf take him away? Or would everyone forget him and leave him to starve? He did not want to spend the rest of his life in a cage, and he certainly did not want to be kept alive on a few cast-off alfalfa pellets only to starve at the end of summer. There was only one answer. Ralph had to escape. The campers finished the chorus of You Are My Sunshine when Ralph's sharp ears caught a sound that had him on his feet in an instant. It was the sound a boy uses to make a toy motorcycle go. It was made really softly, as if by a boy alone in his thoughts. Garf had found Ralph's motorcycle. "Hey!" squeaked Ralph at the top of his tiny little voice. "That's my motorcycle!" Garf stopped pushing the motorcycle across the bamboo leaves just long enough to make Ralph think that maybe he heard him. Then, to Ralph's disappointment, he put the motorcycle in his pocket of his jeans and went off toward the lodge for the rest period required of all the campers. Ralph was so excited he left the bars of his cage and went for a run on his wheel. Garf spoke his language. He knew how to make the motorcycle go. There was hope after all. All Ralph had to do was explain to Garf. As Ralph thought that matter over, his exercise wheel moved more and more slowly until it came to a stop. And Ralph sat back on his haunches. His plan would not work. Until Garf was cleared of the theft of the watch, he was not going to risk coming into the craft shop. Ralph had to agree that Chum was right. Poor Ralph. Oh my goodness. So chapter 7 is called The Escape. I don't even know how he's going to manage to do that. All right, I hope to see you guys on Zoom tomorrow, and then I'll also see you on here to continue on with the next chapter. Have a great evening. Love you guys. Bye.